Hello and welcome to this Monday's edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. It is April 22nd, 2024. It is Passover for the Jewish people. It's also I think it's Earth Day. I don't ever pay attention to it. That is the people that celebrate Earth Day, in my opinion, are a part of a religious cult. They try to make the created the God instead of the creator. So I do believe that as human beings, quite frankly, and as a Christian, we definitely have a responsibility to be wise stewards of God's earth that he put us on. But that doesn't mean that we fall for every scam that the left tries to put out and to virtue signal and all this kind of good stuff while they're absolutely doing nothing to make the environment a safer, cleaner place, especially with so-called renewable energy that isn't renewable at all, putting the equipment in, different parts of water, if you will, that are literally, I think it's the sonar or whatever, the noise that are emitted are killing whales as they wash up on beaches, or from EV batteries that they're, making electrical vehicles out of, obviously, where you have kids mining for black slaves mining for the materials in the Congo, and to the damage that is done to the earth, if you will, by just creating one EV battery is so insane. I mean, they do so much more damage to the environment. If you do believe, right, if you do believe that ICE vehicles cause damage to the environment, then you should really understand EVs and how much more damage they do. They do more damage in the production phase than does the average lifespan of an ICE car. And I'm speaking of internal combustible engine. So just understand that and know that. But anyway, this is Passover for the Jewish people. And man, stick with the Jewish people, stand with the Jewish people. I will continue to stand with the Jewish people as we see the rise in anti-Semitism like I've never seen before. Stories that I've heard and read and all this kind of stuff of the past. And honestly, we are seeing so much anti-Semitism. I honestly fear for I fear for my fellow Jewish Americans. I really do. This is absolutely insane. The left is ginning this stuff up. Biden is saying absolutely nothing about it. But we've got a lot to get into today, so we will do just that. If I sound a little lethargic, it's because I am. I am a little tired, I must admit, but I'm here for you. I want to be here for you, and I want to be here for this country. A lot to get to, obviously. Let me just go right down the tip sheet, and then we'll break some of this stuff down. But today we have the House passes and sends $95 billion foreign aid package bill to the Senate. We will get into that. And guys, I got to just tell you this right off the beginning. I'm really concerned about where, not just about this package, but honestly, I'm getting concerned that we're entering a point in time in history where things are going to get so bad, not just domestically, but as far as foreign policy is concerned. As much as I am against this bill, I wonder if there's going to come a time. I don't want to say that we need this bill, but I wonder if there's going to come a time where I'm not even sure that I know how to phrase it, that these people are going to cause this bill to be a necessity. Almost like, when the fake Christians speak it into existence. Yeah, I mean, there's an element of truth to that. I get it, but I almost wonder if we're trying to make this happen, if we're trying to facilitate a war. I don't even understand how this bill gets passed. Obviously, there's a lot of ire aimed at Speaker Mike Johnson. There are rumors. I got to tell you guys, and I'm not sure what to think about this. But there, as much as many in the House are upset over Speaker Mike Johnson, and I am too. I am one that believes that he should go. I know that he isn't going to go anywhere. It's not going to be an issue that I'm going to continue to press just because of our numbers inside of Congress. I will tell you that we need a conservative leader with some courage and some vision to be the next Speaker of the House. Lord willing, hopefully we'll maintain the House. But I hope some of the rumors that I'm hearing aren't true, and that is Mike Johnson is essentially doing bidding for the establishment, and even President Trump wanted this done. I don't know what to make of that, guys. I'm not But, obviously Lindsey Graham came out and said this wouldn't have happened without Trump. He was bolstering Trump up, which is just really weird to me. But it's not the first time that I heard it. Maybe this is something that Trump would rather get out of the way and off the plate while he's not president. If in fact that is true, I don't know. But hopefully, hopefully not. Hopefully not. And who knows? Maybe it could be part of this, everything they're throwing at this man in persecution. If indeed there is an element of truth to that, is listen, I don't want to be seen as the guy that colluded with Russia, because, the left is going to continue to do that. If he does get elected, if you thought it was bad back in 2016, they're going to try to do the exact same things. And sadly, because we renewed that the FISA Surveillance Act, where Americans can be surveilled without a warrant. Apparently, if you're in Congress, at least you have to be known. They have to let them know. But if you're a peon like us, then apparently that doesn't have to happen. That's going to continue, and you can bet your bottom dollar that the deep state is going to continue to abuse that. So why the Republicans passed that is they're freaking insane. They're freaking insane. Dumbest thing ever. All right, I haven't even gotten to the stories that I really would like to get to. All right, so we have that. They passed this bill. You had Democrats that were waving a Ukrainian flag. I'm going to respond to that because I got to be honest with you. That just POs me. That just makes me so mad. And I posted on X this morning. You can follow me all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show, wherever you go to get or wherever I am on social media. The Carl Jackson Show is where you can find me. I'm on X, Instagram, Facebook, True Social, Getter, wherever I am. The Carl Jackson Show. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever we are. Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. Subscribe, like, share it, all that kind of good stuff. We would certainly appreciate that. We really would. But you had Democrats waving the Ukrainian flag, and they chanted Ukraine on the House floor after the funding bill passed. We have some video of that we're going to show you. This is very disconcerting. And this is what I mean, speaking wars into existence. Maybe that's the better way to put it. Turkey hosts Hamas leaders in a show of solidarity. Turkey's president hosted Hamas leaders over the weekend in highly symbolic and important meetings that reflect the terror group's increased influence and power in the region after the October 7th attack on Israel. Instead of being isolated over its historic crimes against humanity, Hamas has been embraced. Hamas leaders traveled to Ankara amid a new phase of support for the group in the region. A symbol of this embrace was seen in Istanbul on April 20th. Hamas leaders were seated in chairs opposite Turkey's top officials in a red carpet style reception with the Turkish leader. This, according to the Jerusalem Post. Turkey's message is to blame Israel for a conflict that Hamas started. Ankara has also said that it wants to, quote, bring the massacre in Gaza to an end, close quote, according to Turkey's foreign ministry spokesman. The messaging from Ankara during the Hamas visit was intended to increase public support for Hamas more than 6 months after the war. And let me tell you why I believe, a lot of this stuff, even the foreign aid package, is bringing war into existence. I think it's literally at this point making matters worse, man, because I believe there's going to be a reshuffling. This is what scares me. After World War I and all this kind of stuff, boundaries, borders were reshuffled, if you will, right, around the world, and I'm concerned that's what we're going to see, and I'm not exactly sure how to explain it. I'm not exactly sure what to make of it. I'm going to have get a foreign policy expert on, because I definitely want to talk this through. But I'm growing increasingly concerned, and I know people are like, World War III. Listen, man, I hope there will be no World War III. I hope that I'm being hyperbolic, but all I'm doing is considering human nature. All I'm doing is considering the evil out there that does exist, and that there are powers that be that really want to be numero uno in this world. And a lot of reshuffling is going to have to take place in order for that to happen. Now, I think China has waged war against the United States of America, and they've waged an effective war. And I'll talk to you about that a little more in just a second here. You guys already know that Israel retaliated against Iran. Basically, all right, listen, we can hit you anytime, anywhere we want. So be aware of that. That was in response to the 300 missiles and drones that Iran launched directly on Israel just a couple of weeks ago. You have protesters outside Columbia University that cheer on Hamas terrorism. I've never seen anything like this. Hillary, I almost hate this as part of the part of the news headlines, but Hillary Clinton is out and she states that Trump wants to be a dictator who kills and imprisons political opponents, except that he didn't do that. She's out lying about this type of stuff while her team, if you will, the Democrats, are literally trying to imprison former President Donald Trump, and they have imprisoned a bunch of peaceful protesters that participated on the J6 at the J6 rally. Not everybody there was bad. They are literally rounding up people that some that were literally in the audience never went inside of the Capitol. Biden to block oil gas drilling across 13 million acres in Alaska. So if you thought things were going to get bad as far as gas prices, you haven't seen nothing yet. Here's a story that I'm going to get to that I'm going to explain a little bit. China gains large foothold in Antigua. This is what concerns me. As a matter of fact, Gabe, I think I just thought of my title. While House Democrats wave the Ukrainian flag, don't let me forget this. China gains foothold in Antigua. Something like that. We'll work on that because China is on the march and we have Joe Biden in the White House and we're making symbolic votes that are absolutely going to do nothing at this point in time. If we were serious about arming Ukraine at the beginning, then they should have just armed Ukraine at the very beginning and said, we're going to give you not money. We're going to give you the weaponry you need to hold Putin outside of your border. They have not done that. Putin continues to gain ground. I don't think that Putin intends to go into NATO territory. But here's what I think: while we're focused on Iran, while we're focused on Russia, while we're focused on Iran, you have China that are making moves. And I think that's part of the strategic alliance. I think that's part of China's play. Russia, you do your thing. Iran, you do your thing. And we won't say anything about it. We won't, pretend like we're for it or this or that, but we're going to continue to trade with both of you guys because we want to make sure that we continue to get oil on the cheap from you guys, and we'll continue to bolster you. We'll continue to embolden you. And besides, you got an American president and Joe Biden that's stupid enough to do the same. And so while all of that is happening, while the world is paying attention to Russia, while the world is paying, and the United States is paying attention to Russia and show votes for, Russia, Ukraine, we're going to continue to be on the march. And that's what I fear is happening. Actually, that's what I know is happening. As a matter of fact, after I give you some of this news for the day, Tucker Carlson sounded off on what he thinks is happening and why the U.S. House of Representatives are so eager to pass some of these bills to continue to fund this war in Ukraine, which at this point is absolutely, again, if Joe Biden, and I know there was a lot of heat at the time, and listen, I didn't agree with it, but I mean, obviously hindsight is 2020. I knew that Putin was going to take Ukraine. A lot of people didn't. So I know that Ukraine isn't an ally, but I understand that Ukraine is basically a buffer. And I don't know I forget what the policy was. I forget the name of it, but there was a point in time where both the United States and Russia, I believe there was a third country involved. I can't recall, to be honest. We talked Ukraine out of giving up their nuclear weapons. Actually, Barack Obama did talk them into giving up their nuclear weapons, and so now they can't defend themselves, and so they rely on us to be able to defend them. Part of the problem is part of the people that they made the deal with was with Russia, and Russia obviously wants to take as much as Ukraine because Putin wants the old glory of Russia. You know what I mean? He wants the USSR. He wants that back. Does he intend to go into NATO? I don't think so. But I think NATO, all of these NATO countries, I'm not sure exactly what the point is. If they're not willing to defend themselves, I'm not sure why we are. I'm not sure why we would risk getting into a war if they're not willing to defend their own boundaries. And so they're going to have to step up to the plate. Biden drastically changes Title IX. Now, that was the big news headed in to the weekend before this bill was passed. But the Biden administration, and I'll dive deeper into this because this is psychological warfare. This is all a part of communism. I talked about this actually probably been a year or two ago, the psychological warfare of Title IX and changing those rules. The Biden administration's Department of Education unveiled a sweeping set of rules on Friday that effectively erased protections of sex-based spaces by expanding the Title IX prohibition against sex discrimination to include gender identity, a term that's never mentioned in the original law. A majority of Americans agree that males who claim to identify otherwise should not be allowed to infiltrate girls and women's sports teams. And basically, Biden just X'd women's sports. That's what he did. He just canceled them out. All right. So anyway, those are some of the big news items for the day. Now, I'm going to dive into a couple of those. Obviously, the funding bill. But I also want to talk about China's encroachment on Antigua and why I think we need to be extremely concerned about that. But before we get started, I do want to talk to you about wealth protection research. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle that we hold sacred. Free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom that we cherish. Yet in today's digital age, discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations crucial to our financial independence and security. This is where wealth protection research steps in. They're armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth protection research is not a financial advisory firm. They are defenders of free speech, committed to giving a voice to the silence. Wealth protection research tirelessly seeks out financial experts. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 election wealth protection report. This free report highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't touch, and listeners can get it completely free. All you have to do is text the word ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act now. Please text the word ideas, IDEAS, to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 election protection report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment does not think you can handle, and to take control of our financial destinies. Text the word ideas, IDEAS, to 76626 to claim your free copy. All right. Now let's get into this. First off, let's go ahead and roll this first video, Gabe, and then I'll break down this foreign aid package that we just sent to Ukraine, to Israel, Taiwan, and also TikTok. I mean, that bill moves forward where TikTok could potentially be banned in the United States if TikTok doesn't break free from ByteDance, and ByteDance is basically the Chinese conglomerate that rules over TikTok, that collects data, that collects behavior, American behavior, as China continues to try and seek world dominance. That's exactly what they're after. And that's why I do believe that TikTok needs to be divorced from ByteDance if it's going to remain inside of the United States. I hate that Joe Biden is at the helm, but China is on the move, and you knew that was going to happen with Joe Biden in office. So I think we need to ban TikTok if they indeed refuse to divorce from ByteDance. All right, let's go ahead and roll that first video, por favor. Gabe, this Democrats in the House of Representatives. All right, that should make you so mad. I honestly, when I first saw that video, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't recognize it. I was like, is that Ukraine? Is that? I really thought that at first. Because I saw it quickly in passing. Some have said, and I totally agree, there should never be any flag flown inside of the U.S. House of Representatives except the American flag. And so I would say this about all of these jackasses that were waving that Ukrainian flag. Let me ask you, actually, let me do this. Let me ask you a question. Looking back at that video, watching that video, have you ever seen Democrats? I'm not sure. I maybe after 9/11, I need to go back and look at some video. But have you ever seen Democrats wave the American flag with such zeal, and the way that they wave that Ukrainian flag? And isn't it rather suspicious that all of them have that Ukrainian flag ready to go, as if they knew exactly what was going to happen with this bill? It's kind of odd, right? Kind of suspicious. But you know what? I do believe. Listen, man, if Ukraine is so great, I've heard other people say it. I'm not the only one that have said it. Perhaps that is where you need. Perhaps that is where you need to go. And listen, I have nothing against the Ukrainian people. I have nothing against Russian people. I can't stand Vladimir Putin. I can't stand Zelensky at this point. I didn't always feel that way. Although I think I understand Zelensky more than a lot of others. I think he just learned to play the game. I think he knew that the United States saw him as expendable in the war with Russia. I don't think Biden ever really intended to constrain Vladimir Putin. That's why he never acted while Putin sat on the border of Ukraine for months. He never called up Zelensky and said, listen, man, this guy is getting ready to take territory. We're concerned about our NATO allies. I'm talking to them, so on, et cetera. Can we offer you any weaponry to make sure that this doesn't occur? That talk didn't occur. You just have to really wonder what's going on. But to see this inside of the United States, the House chamber, is absolutely very sickening, very scary to me. And it suggests to me that a lot of these people that are waving their flags, they have more loyalty for Ukraine than they do for the United States of America, because obviously it is the Democrat Party that is involved in fundamentally undermining our Constitution of the United States of America. They are literally trying to transform the best country that has ever existed in the world. These people are sickening. These people are absolutely disgusting. Now, I do want you to hear this next video, and we got them lined up. So, Gabe, let's go ahead and get this video of Tucker Carlson. I thought this was very interesting, obviously very telling. I'm sure many of you have seen this video as well, and it just makes you wonder how many people are compromised inside of Washington, D.C. I have not seen it, but I understand that Glenn Beck and his network, The Blaze, have a video out that I want to see called Bought and Paid For. Perhaps you guys can see it. Listen, and guys, I understand I'm with Salem Podcast Network. I mean, you can find me all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Let me just reiterate. All right, check out my podcast wherever you go to, or subscribe to it wherever you go to get your podcast and share it. The Carl Jackson Show. But we are in a fight for our survival as far as the United States of America is concerned. And so when there's a fellow conservative company that are out doing a good thing, listen, we're in the fight together. All right. We are all in this together. All right. So I'm going to check that out. Maybe you should check it out as well. Make sure you check out Flynn too, salemnow.com with General Mike Flynn. Because there is a deep state and there are a bunch of sellouts inside of Congress. And Tucker Carlson gives us insight because he's spoken to some people directly inside of Congress. Here's what he had to say on a recent podcast with Joe Rogan. Let's go ahead and roll it, Gabe.
Members of Congress are terrified of the intel agencies. I'm not guessing at that. They've told me that, including people on the Intel Committee, including people who run the Intel Committee, the people whose job it is to oversee and keep in line these enormous secretive agencies whose budgets we can't even know. They're black budgets. They're the parents. The agencies are the children. They're afraid of the agencies. That's not compatible with democracy. Democracy is a really simple system, even representative democracy like ours. The people rule. They do so through elections. They express their preference through voting. They send their people to the capital city to run the government on their behalf. Whenever you have unelected people who are not accountable to anyone making the biggest decisions, you don't have a democracy, you have something else, another system. I would call it a tyranny or whatever you want to call it. It's not a democracy. So that's like super obvious. It's playing out in front of everyone and no one cares and no one does anything about it. And I think the reason is because they're threatened. And if you look at the committee chairmen who allow this shit to happen year after year, they're all, and I don't know, people say, oh, they're compromised or being blackmailed or whatever. I don't have evidence of that, but I know them and they all have things to hide. I know that for a fact. And so it's not a stretch of imagination to imagine that, you know, some committee chairman who's allowing warrantless spying on Americans to continue or whatever abuse they're allowing, knowing fully or hiding the truth about UAPs, ignoring the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023. Like, why are they doing that? It's not impossible to imagine that some guy with a drinking problem or a weird sex life, and that's very common up there, that's why they're doing it. because they don't want to be exposed. I don't have evidence of that. I don't have proof of that.
Right.
But that's not a crazy thing to assume that could be happening. And I said to somebody, a very powerful person, the other day in a conversation in my kitchen, an elected official, holds a really senior position, a very famous person. I was going crazy. I was so mad about all this stuff and about the warrantless spying and about the funding for these insane wars. And I said to the guy who serves in one of the legislative bodies, I got so mad my dogs were afraid. They're like, well, why are you yelling? Because I don't yell at home. But I was like, all these people are controlled. They're all, got weird sex lives and all these things are hiding and they're being blackmailed by the intel agencies. And he said, and I'm quoting, I know. It was like, okay, so at this point we're just sort of admitting that's real? Like, why do we allow that to continue?
All right. And listen, I mean, even without evidence, right? We all suspect we all suspect that's the case. All right. I mean, this is, I don't get it. People are wondering why Speaker Mike Johnson flipped all of a sudden all of the positions that he took beforehand. There was not going to be any aid for Ukraine unless it was tied to a border bill. Now, all of a sudden, he doesn't care about the border bill. What's going on? I mean, who's telling him what to do? See, I don't necessarily believe that Speaker Johnson is at this alone. That's why I want to know, is somebody in his ear? Are there things that he's trying to hide? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Is it the Republican establishment and leaders of the Republican establishment saying, hey, you better do this or we won't have you back, a bunch of rhinos? Could it be in the background Trump is like, listen, just deal with this stuff now. When I get in, I'm going to come in and save the day. So just get this stuff over with or whatever and go ahead and pass it and give them what they need and, so on, et cetera, at least for now. I don't know, but I find it funny. I find it weird. I find it suspicious. And honestly, guys, if in my opinion, you should be skeptical of everyone or you're un-American when it comes to the political game. Every single person in Washington, D.C., you should be skeptical of. You should be. I mean, because everybody talks a good game, but we continue to move left. And it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to give you the details of this Ukraine aid bill. But before I do, I just want to talk to you real quickly about MyPillow.com. You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the big box stores or the shopping channels like they used to. Basically, they're the victims of cancel culture. So they want to pass the savings directly on to you. And they're doing this by promoting this $25 extravaganza. Mike started MyPillow, and all he had at the time was one product, and that is the MyPillow, which I absolutely love, by the way. I could barely wake up this morning, so I was sleeping on one of those bad boys. But anyway, he started with that. Now he's got because of Mike and his dedicated employees, they have hundreds of products, some that you may not even know about. All you have to do is go to MyPillow.com and check them out. So to get the word out, here's what I want to do. I'm going to invite all of my listeners to check out the $25 extravaganza. I'm sorry, they've got a 2-pack multi-use MyPillows that are just $25. The MyPillow sandals are just $25. Their 6-pack of towels are just $25. A brand new pack of dish towels, just $25. And also, for the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, they're just $25. Orders over $75 will receive free shipping as well. All you have to do is go to MyPillow.com and use the promo code Carl. That is CARL, or give them a call at 800-858-0263. That's promo code Carl, CARL. I don't spell it like the commie. All right, now. So we went through Tucker Carlson. Let me just give you hat tip to the Daily Wire, and also I have some stuff here from Daily Signal that I'll get into. And man, there's so many things. Again, there's a story I'll be getting into tomorrow as well. 15 state officials warn Bank of America about debanking of Christians. This was on Zero Hedge, and this is something that we need to be paying attention to, because these people work hand in hand, whether it's the left-wing media, all right, or mainstream media, whatever you want to call it, communist media, whatever you want to call them, all right, the DNC, the Democrat Congress people, all of these people work together. They're working together to fight against Americans, to fight against the American idea. And so now you literally have places like the like Bank of America debanking Christians. So I printed that article out. I'll get into that either tomorrow or sometime this week. I'll be in for Officer Tatum a couple of times this week, and also for Dennis Prager on Friday. So I will make sure I break that down in great detail and specificity, hopefully here on a podcast too. So anyway, all right. So here's just a short summary of what's in the bill. So the bill, obviously, this occurred on Saturday, and they passed a series of spending packages designating $95 billion in foreign aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. A separate vote was taken on each aid proposal, with $60 billion going to Ukraine, had to the Daily Wire, $17 billion for Israel, $9 billion for humanitarian aid, $8 billion to support Taiwan. Another bill that could ban TikTok if the company is not taken out of Chinese control was also passed. And understand this, TikTok will never be banned. Just using TikTok inside of the United States, it will not be able or not be permitted to continue to function inside of the United States unless they divorce from ByteDance. So just a little different. It isn't an outright ban. TikTok will exist regardless. It just will not be able to operate within U.S. Sovereignty, even though it's hard to say that U.S. is a sovereign nation when we got an open border. But that's what that's about. All right. And then obviously Speaker Johnson faced a bunch of backlash from Republicans who wanted to hold the votes on foreign aid spending until more funding for the border was secured. That didn't happen. After the votes, Johnson said that the global threats from Russia, Iran, and China necessitated American leadership and support for the spending. I don't understand why the national security and the global threats that are walking through our southern border didn't necessitate funding. Like, I mean, this makes no sense whatsoever. You don't have to be a big Trump lover to think, you know what? Or let's just put it into these perspectives. Let's say you live in a blue city, so crime is crazy. All right. What do you do when you leave the house, or what do you do to your own house? You make sure that your own house is safe and secure. You make sure that all the doors and locks are working, all the windows, have locks on them. And so you secure yourself within your own home first, before you even walk out into the street to see what dangers are outside of your home, right? We're not doing that. It makes no sense. This absolutely makes no sense. You can, even if you believe in the funding Ukraine, although they're not giving them the weaponry at the pace that they need and the money they need to make the war successful. This is going to continue to be a long, drawn out, protracted war. And I think that's exactly what Joe Biden intended, because once the war did start and Zelensky wasn't killed, because he wants to be able to run against Vladimir Putin, right? He wants to be able to run as a wartime president. He really screwed himself with the Afghanistan debacle, 13 servicemen members killed, and then they blew up a family of 7 or 10. I can't remember the number, with a dad in the car with his kids. And yet they want to call out Israel. As a matter of fact, there's been sanctions placed upon an IDF squadron. I'll get that story for you as well. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. Where we are is absolutely insane. So the Taiwan proposal passed at 385 to 34. So a lot of support for Taiwan. 178 Republicans and 207 Democrats in opposition from only 34 Republicans. And I believe the reason why that's the case is because they understand, for the most part, that China is on the march. Taiwan, the issue with Taiwan, I do believe that Taiwan, we need to arm them first and foremost. And honestly, it's sad, but we've gained a dependence because we do so much when it comes to our chip manufacturing. We do so much offshore with Taiwan. We will be in serious pain if Taiwan is to be attacked, because I don't think we're building the materials here quick enough to make sure that nothing goes down if China takes over Taiwan. And I'm frankly surprised that hasn't happened as of yet. The Ukraine proposal passed 311 to 112. So that had the largest bit of opposition. 101 Republicans, 210 Democrats in support, and opposition from 112 Republicans. The Israel aid passed 366 to 58. So A lot of support from Israel for Israel, despite the fact, obviously, the Squad and all of those communists were against it. But more support than I suspected from Israel, to be honest, with support from 193 Republicans and 173 Democrats, and opposition from 21 Republicans and 37 Democrats. The Ukraine aid includes $20.5 billion for European command operations, $15.8 billion in security assistance, $13.4 billion for refilling U.S. weapons stockpiles, $9.5 billion in forgivable economic loans, according to the Wall Street Journal. Israel will get $13 billion in defense aid and $3.6 billion in security assistance, while over $2 billion for military financing, $5.6 billion for deterrence will be allocated for the Indo-Pacific. I have no problem funding Israel. I know people are going to disagree with me as far as that's concerned. I think both practical and spiritual, and you don't have to agree with me on a spiritual point, but I believe that practically speaking, Israel is our first line of defense. I believe all of those terrorists that are there, they believe that America is the great Satan. They believe that Israel is the little Satan. So they'll strike the little Satan that's in their own backyard. And if given the opportunity, like, I don't know, open southern borders, they'll try to strike the great Satan as well. But China's on the march. China's trying to strike the great Satan. That's what's absolutely scary. But I have no problem funding Israel. Matter of fact, let's show you this video real quick, because the anti-Semitism. Listen, guys, it's funny to me. Even people on the right that are absolutely bigots, that are pretending to be Christians, that are going to have to answer to God for their bigotry against Jews. I say screw you. I mean, that's the way that. That's the way that I see it. But again, I have no problem arming Israel. Israel, basically, all they do is buy weaponry from us. I mean, it's like it's a symbiotic relationship. It's not just all one way. We just give them money, and no, any assistance we give them, they use right back. It's like a I was going to say a vicious circle, but that isn't the term I want to use. But it's reciprocal, and they get aid, and then they buy stuff from us. So that's the way that it happens. It's in basically, anyway, they're our first line of defense when it comes to Islamic terrorism. Instead of us going out there and sitting in the desert and fighting wars that we don't need to fight, all we need to do is unleash Israel. I mean, that's it. And Biden doesn't want to do that for whatever reason, because he's bought into Obama's military policy, where they are strengthening the Iranian mullahs. For what purpose? I absolutely have no idea, when all they do is foment terrorism in the Middle East, where even whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's Jordan, they're not even liked in the Middle East, the mullahs of Iran. So it's just absolutely crazy to me. But that's where all the funding was. And again, you had a lot of pushback from Republicans on this. You had Senator Mike Lee, in regards to Speaker Johnson, say Speaker Johnson made it essentially impossible to vote for any of the bills before the House today without assisting in the effort to send $60 billion to Ukraine and up to $9 billion to Hamas. He also made it impossible, to condition any of these things on U.S. border security. You have Representative Warren Davidson from Ohio say, as much as it takes, as long as it takes, is not a mission statement, but a recipe for disaster. Absolutely. Like, you keep spending money without an objective. Like, you realize that Putin, even though he's losing a lot of soldiers and everybody thought he would win this thing quite easily, you realize that he is winning, even though he's doing it at the expense of a lot of his own people. He is winning, and he is gaining ground in Ukraine. And all that's going to happen is, as we continue to fund Ukraine, you don't think Russia is going to be helped out by China? You don't think Russia is going to be helped up by Iran? By the way, Iran, the terrorist attacks in Israel were bought and paid for by the Biden administration for the most part. I mean, they're the ones that relieved the sanctions so that Iran could sell their. They gave them access to frozen cash and allowed them to sell their oil to China. So essentially, the attacks on Israel bought and paid for by the Biden administration. You had the Heritage Actions president, Kevin Roberts, say of the foreign aid package. He said the foreign aid package moving through the House this week is almost indistinguishable from the Senate's failed supplemental spending bill House leadership claimed to oppose for months. While their position seems to have changed, ours is resolute. Conservatives have not, do not, and will not support another unaccountable nearly $60 billion check for a foreign country to secure its border while our own lies dangerously wide open. Why is that? I mean, just it doesn't even make any sense. I really, it doesn't even make any sense. Who's in charge? Who wants the border open? Who has what on whom? Let me show you real quick. We have a couple other videos that I want to share before we close it out. These are University of Columbia students or Columbia University students, pro-Hamas students cheering in favor of Hamas. Guys, first they came for the Jews. I mean, it's really that simple. You imagine this administration, in my opinion, are guilty of allowing all this anti-Semitism to fester inside of the United States. So first they came from the Jews. One day it's going to be you. One day it's going to be me. So just keep that in mind. All you bigots out there. All right, so let's go ahead and let's roll this video, Gabe, por favor. All right, so here's what was being said. Al Qassam, you make us proud. Take another soldier out. We say justice, you say how. Burn Tel Aviv to the ground. Columbia University. Hamas, we love you. We support your rockets too. Red, black, green, and white. We support Hamas. Fight. It is right to rebel. Al Qassam, give them hell. It is right to rebel. Hamas, give them hell. Free, free, free. Palestine. We should move all of those little punk behind fools there. Let them go to Iran. Let them go to Gaza. Let them live there. Let them live there. The elections aren't going to be enough, but they'll be a good start. It's not going to be enough. We've got we've got so much cleanup to do in aisle one in the United States of America. It's unbelievable. I mean, every time I think, and I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but every time I think it's bad, I feel like it gets worse. So you're going to have to really turn to your faith. You're going to have to really turn to family and friends and get through this and enjoy life where you can. And just know that every day you step into the political arena, you are stepping on a battlefield. Hillary Clinton had this to say. I want to play this last video for you. This is Hillary Clinton. Here's what she says that Trump is going to do to you. Meanwhile, the left is doing exactly that to President Trump. But here's what the irrelevant Hillary Clinton had to say. I almost feel like, why am I bothering playing this? The lady is such a joke. But I do want to make a point of it. So let's go ahead and roll the video. Por favor, Gabe.
And they say, oh, Joe Biden's old. I always say, look, you're right. Joe Biden is old. He's also effective. He's compassionate. He cares about people. He wants to maintain our democracy. He will abide by the results of a fair and free election. And Donald Trump is old, and he has 91 felony criminal indictments against him. And in a court of law, it's not just rhetoric. You got to step up and prove evidence. That's one of the reasons you win so many cases, Mark, because the other side is in there just, carrying on, making claims they can't prove. And you actually step up and you got facts and you got evidence. How novel. And you win because you have a better case. This man has been indicted 91 times. And do we really expect him to govern in a stable, appropriate, rules-based, respectful way? Of course not. And if you're somebody who thinks, well, yeah, but he's entertaining and politics is boring and I don't know what they do anyway, you cannot think like that in this election. No matter what issue you care about, I don't care what it is. You will find that the next president will have some influence on that, and you want somebody at the very least who will try to find what the facts are and make decisions that are evidence-based. And finally, I think we haven't talked much about the international arena, but his bromance with Putin, and it was actually called that, I think, by the former Prime Minister of Australia, who said he saw Trump with Putin, and Trump was like, just gaga over Putin, because Putin does what he would like to do: kill his opposition, imprison his opposition, drive, journalists and others into exile, rule without any check or balance. That's what Trump really wants. And so we have to be very conscious of how he sees the world, because in that world, he only sees strongmen leaders. He sees Putin, he sees Xi, he sees Kim Jong-un in North Korea. Those are the people he is modeling himself after. And we've been down this road in our, world history. We sure don't want to go down that again. And especially when, my view, having negotiated with Putin and knowing that one of the reasons he went after me is because he knew I would, deal with him in an appropriate way, and Trump would basically do whatever he wanted. It's really important to think about what could happen to our world with Trump back in the White House, withdrawing us from NATO, not caring about what happens.
Okay, I've heard enough of this heifer. All right, you go ahead and please go ahead and cut this heifer off, please, please, please. This coming from the chick that made the deal, cut the deal with Vladimir Putin and Russia under the Obama administration. I believe it was Medvedev that was in as president at the time with Uranium One, which is the reason why Putin has nuclear weapons today that he's using to destroy. Or that he's threatening to destroy Ukraine with and the rest of the world if anyone steps in. This is from the lady that paid for the Russia collusion hoax and used a British spy as well as some of our Russian adversaries to go against Trump. This is from the lady that's sitting there. She talks about Trump's 91 felony counts are actually 88, and 34 counts. 34 counts are from Alvin Bragg's case, which has been postponed. The Manhattan case, the non-disclosure agreement case against Trump with Stormy Daniels, where literally 34 of the counts are in that case alone. So a misdemeanor gets bumped up to 34 felonies. This lady is a joke. She knows these things are a joke. And the reason why she's saying it is because she believes that keeping Biden in office is her get out of jail free card. It is nothing more than that. This lady is sick. She's twisted. She's evil. I absolutely can't stand her. Excuse me. I didn't always feel that way. People used to say how evil Hillary Clinton was. I didn't really pay much attention to her back in the day. But obviously Russia collusion, hoax on, etc. I never thought she was a brilliant politician. I never thought she was the smartest woman in the world. And obviously she's not looking at that. But what should be more offensive to you is just how dumb she believes you are to be able to mouth off all of those points, knowing that they're complete and utter lies. Guys, so much more I want to get into, but just not enough time to do it in today's podcast. I'll bring you more details on this Ukraine aid bill, but again, I think it's a total disaster. I do not know who has this guy by the Bozaks, but all of these bills that are sent to all of these places, and again, I'm for supporting Israel because I believe they're our first line of defense in Islamic terrorism. I believe in supporting Taiwan for the sake of, honestly, it's America's interest right now. Like dummies, we offshored a lot of our manufacturing, including the chips manufacturing, to Taiwan. And until we can build it up where we can do it here, we're going to be in a buttload of trouble. inside of the United States. As far as Ukraine is concerned, it's too late. I'm sorry. I don't want to make you mad. I don't want to hurt your feelings. It's too late. Biden had the opportunity to stop, and Biden and NATO, which we're included in, had the opportunity to stop Putin, and they didn't. It almost seemed like Biden egged them on. I mean, you had to know what the guy was going to do when he was sitting on the border of Ukraine. So we are living in precarious times. Oh, God almighty. I got to close with this. I'm sorry. I forgot to mention this. This was the whole point of the podcast to lead up to this. Sorry, Gabe. This will be real quick, but I gotta share this. Hat tip Daily Wire: China begins rapidly expanding on small island near America's doorstep. So while we're focused on Russia, and while Iran has us distracted as well, China is on the march, and they continue to be on the march. These people have a 100-year game plan. So communist China is beginning to rapidly increase its footprint in the Caribbean as it seeks to dethrone the United States as the world's leading superpower. Newsweek reported that just a couple hundred miles away from the U.S. Virgin Islands, China has started to take over the paradise island of Antigua. Did you guys know about this? You guys hear about this? Because we hear about Russia, Ukraine all the time, but no word on what China has been doing with Joe Biden in the White House, keeping us all safe, right? Here's what China is doing while the Democrats are waving the Ukrainian flags in Congress. So China is constructing a Chinese-run special economic zone on the island that according to reports, will, quote, have its own customs and immigration formalities, just a couple hundred miles outside of the U.S. Virgin Islands. All right. So it'll have its own customs and immigration formalities, a shipping port, and a dedicated airline will be able to issue passports. It will establish businesses offering everything from logistics to cryptocurrencies, facial surgery. All right. If you want to go there for a facelift or to virology, ironically, they're going to do, I guess, research and viruses, just a couple of hundred miles from the U.S. Virgin Islands. That's pretty fascinating. So China's encroachment is what is known as America's third border, has U.S. officials alarmed because China uses these developments and upgrades to a country's infrastructure as a way to bring their own military into a new region. Haven't heard about this on the news, have you? Here's what a spokesperson for CENTCOM had to say in an interview with Newsweek. We are aware that China may use its commercial and diplomatic presence for military purposes. In Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, China has already abused commercial agreements at host country ports for military aims. Our concern is they may do the same in this region. And Antigua has basically borrowed lots of money from China. This, according to the report, the Antiguan Prime Minister, Gaston Brown, is a huge supporter of Chinese dictator Xi Jinping, and the communist nation has become Antigua's favorite country to borrow money from. So the borrower is slave to the lender. The biblical verse. Members of Antigua's government refused to tell publication how much the country owed China. Obviously, it's a buttload. He said that even the institution that China could be doing anything nefarious was, quote, utter rubbish. What an idiot that leader is. Here's what Southern Command had to say. Given the breadth of investment into logistics infrastructure China has made in the Caribbean, we are concerned that China could task its state-owned enterprises and diaspora to conduct intelligence or influence operations against the U.S., our partners in the region, for military purposes. Those concerns are further heightened when you consider the CCP practice of targeting, recruiting, and bribing officials. Here's what Gazelle Isaac, she's the chairwoman of the United Progressive Party in Antigua. She warned that Brown has sold out the country to the Chinese. She said, and this lady's a progressive, she says Antigua has traded its sovereignty, I think most of us believe, to China. I think China wants a foothold in more strategic places as a superpower. I think that this administration has become, and that's our concern, overly reliant on one partner, that partner being China. Everybody feels like their testicles are in a vice, that if you say the wrong thing, if you align yourself the wrong way, you're putting yourself in danger. She said, at night, I switch on my alarm and say my prayers. China's new embassy on the island is such an intimidating compound that locals often stop and take photos of it. Antigua sold China the 5 acres of land for its embassy. Listen to this. You want to know how much Antigua sold? You want to know how much Antigua is in debt to China? Antigua sold 5 acres of land for its embassy for the equivalent of 40 cents. No, not $40 million. The U.S. equivalent of 40 cents. 4 dimes, 8 nickels, 40 pennies. Multiple regional officials said that they believe the embassy was really, quote, an intelligence base or a listening post. We assessed that any intelligence activities, this according to Southern Command, conducted by the People's Republic of China and the Caribbean will almost certainly be targeted at U.S. and regional commercial and military movements in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. So that's that's the bookcase, right? The book ends. Those are the bookends. Russia, Ukraine. So we focus there. But in the end, it's China that's really going to be screwing us. There's the Carl Jackson Show for today, guys. There's a summary. I guess I could have made it a one-liner. Guys, listen, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Pray for our nation. Pray for our leaders. Pray that we will get better leaders, moral leaders in place with courage that'll stand up to the left, not just in this country, but abroad. Again, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.